Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Paul, thank you so much for joining me. Let me see what's going on here. Thank you so much. I had so many different things going on. I apologize. Good morning. Thank you for joining me. And I'm excited to talk to you. And we're definitely going to talk about how to express love. So thank you again for being here.
Glad to be here, Raphael. Glad to be part of your show.
Yes, sir. So the role of love, and that's what you have under your name, right? Paul Zolman, role of love. What does that mean? What does that mean to me when I first read it?
What it
Or
means
what would
is,
you like it to mean?
what I'd like it to mean is that inside there's a role that love has in everyone's life, and what that means to me is
I kind of lost you. Hello, Paul? Paul? Wow, we were getting into it really deep, and we'll give him a minute to come back. Sometimes these things happen, right? Technical difficulties. He may have something going on with his internet. Maybe it's me. I can't blame everybody else. Yeah, I'll take full responsibility. It might be my internet going. Not sure. But as soon as Paul comes back, we will allow him to continue talking to us about the role of love and what does it mean to you as a viewer? And I totally lost him entirely. So what does it mean to you, love? And one of the things that I've seen so many times, people come back and they express that they love this, they love pizza, they love this sandwich, they love this food. And that word should be changed sometimes to like, because so many people put in that word has lost its meaning sometimes. Paul, thank you for you're back.
I'm back.
Yes.
I don't know what that was. It totally shut down my system.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know if it was me or if it was you, but I'm just happy you're back.
Yeah, here I am. So anyway, the role of love is just there's a change that happens within that I try to help people or facilitate them, coach them to have that change within for themselves.
And when you were off for a second, I talked about how that word love has really escaped the meaning today because everybody loves this drink. They love the pizza. They love this whatever. And the word love, I think, has lost a lot of value when people should actually use the word like or I appreciate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
what does that truly mean to us when somebody says, "Hey, I love you"? Is that what do we think?
I think it means a lot of different things as you've just mentioned. But what I'm trying to do, Raphael, is actually uh, bring back basics of love, the decency, the common kindness of love back, and from that make them actually stair steps to the higher laws of love, which would be the intimacy or the forgiveness or the compassion, the charity, the empathy, the sympathy. All those would be higher laws of love. But let's build that foundation back, bring that back, just the common decency, kindness of opening a door for someone, anything like that, just bring it all back.
Kindness, acts of kindness without This is what I tell the kids that I teach, and I say to them, "What is integrity?" And
Mm.
they're always baffled by it. And I said, "Well, it's doing the right thing even when nobody's watching." And they're like,
Right,
"Huh?"
right.
I said, "Do you put your toys away when you're by yourself, or do you have to wait for somebody to tell you?" And then they think about it, and I go, "Well, that's part of integrity, doing the right thing, right? Helping somebody else without looking for that pat on the back necessarily, right?"
That's exactly right. So, Raphael, what I coach with is helping people understand that love really is giving it away without any expectation of it coming back, but you're also trusting the laws of the universe, the law
Mm,
of the harvest, the law of karma, law of attraction, law of polarity, whatever law you're looking at, those laws of the universe existed before we ever existed. So
right.
use those laws, trust those laws of the universe, that it's going to come back someday. Don't worry about it. Just send it out. And that's really our job. That's all we can do. I can't bid someone to love me. Just so and that's kind of what my beef is with a little bit with Dr. Chapman. Don't have really any beef. I like the philosophy that he had of the five love languages, but I
Mhm.
think that telling someone that I should be wearing a badge. Hello, Raphael. I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? I mean, it's just awkward to tell
Mm,
someone that I like gifts or I like service or I like this or that. And then after that you told them and they don't do it, you get this little whiny voice that, well, I told you how to love me. Why aren't you doing it? And it's just you don't even want to go to that pity party, Raphael. You don't want to go there. And the reason that you're just sending it out without any regard of it coming back is that's what you have control over. You don't
mm.
have control over someone loving you. So stay in your lane, stay in what you have control over, and so you have control over sending love out and responding when it comes your way.
Yeah, so definitely as a giver, right? A giver of love. A lot of times you said it, you hit it the nail on the head. You talked about expecting. You expect someone to love you identical to how much you
Mhm.
love them. And when they don't necessarily love you as much, you get offended. You get, I guess, what I've seen some people do is you don't love me, and I've actually heard people say, you know, oh, she doesn't, oh, he doesn't love me as much as I love them, and it's almost driving I guess a stake into the heart, if you will,
Mhm.
right? Because it's that guilt. We're trying to guilt someone into being a certain way.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And you really touched on a subject too that I really like to talk about here is that most people, as I agree with Dr. Chapman, most people have a primary love language, one way that they specifically like to be loved above any other way. But what they're doing with that is they're sending that out, hoping that it's going to come back right back
Mm,
to them, and that reciprocity is transactional. It is not love. Love's not a transaction. We are not on a reality show. This is not let's make a deal. It's not like that. You're sending it out without regard of it ever coming back.
So you talked about transactional, and it reminds me of people who try to buy love.
Hmm.
And we all know that if we go to Hollywood or if we go to certain places, especially Las Vegas, you can probably think you're buying love, right? But I've seen it a lot with parents. So parents, especially in divorce situations, one parent tries to outdo the other one by, I'll buy you this to show you I love you more than your mom, or I'll buy you this to show you I love you more than your dad. And is that hurtful to a child?
Oh, absolutely. It really is that type of competition that of trying to buy someone because there's going to be a loser. It's not
Mm,
only going to be the loser of which parent has less money, but it's also going to be the child that's going to lose in that situation. And that type of competition is not, obviously not love. They're not sending it out. When what kind of messages are you sending? And one thing that I found out through my coaching that I do, Raphael, is that the best coaching really has object lessons. That type of buying someone is not the right object lesson. I like this type of object lesson right here. That just this sunrise that's behind me, and the the best. There was a time in my life that I got up before dawn and I came home after dark. So I saw
Mm,
the sunrise and I saw the sunset.
mm,
The very best sunrises and the very best sunsets all have clouds. All
mm,
have clouds. And so it is with our life, that the very best lives have that adversity in our life that we go through to be able to get to the beautiful sun. We get to see the silver lining of the cloud. We get to see the sunrise or the sunset with that cloud. And that's just an analogy I like to use, that we're all going to have problems. Let the child learn. Instead of trying to buy them and move them by money, which is really it's going to hurt them throughout their life. They're going to
mm,
think they're going to have a jaded uh, view of what really love is. They're going to have a
right.
jaded view of what relationships should be like. If it's all monetary, they're going to have really, really light, very shallow relationships. It's not going to take that depth that it needs to take.
And they may also think that that's how they get love. So when you talk about shallow, they'll start repeating that process. If they're well off, they'll
Mm-hmm.
go, well, the only way I felt love from my parents is when they bought me stuff. So let me go ahead and start buying stuff for whoever I feel affectionate towards. Right. So it's that crazy cycle that we've seen, and I've seen it personally from people, friends of mine, the way they treat their kids, especially if they're divorced. And one of the things that I've taught my kids is that, the dog that we had. And they're like, yeah. I said, did you ever really have to buy that dog anything for it to be happy to see you? Or to come and the tail is wagging like crazy and is super happy to see you and will just let you jump on it and do all these crazy things. My kids used to sleep on the dog. Literally, they used to
Mm-hmm.
use it as a pillow. And
Awesome.
that love right there is something I always remind them about, because it's that unconditional love that really has no price.
I love that analogy. That's beautiful. Thank you, Raphael.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that for a minute. Pets. We can't buy their love. We can buy tons of treats, right? But an animal will wait by the window. A dog will wait by the window or by the door for you to come home if you leave.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, and I have friends of mine who have cameras in their house, and they have like a little treat thing, and they'll talk to their dog or whatnot, and they'll feed it a treat every so often during the day because they're not home. So they must be feeling guilty they're not home because they're doing these things. But if you look at the camera, most of the time, the dogs or the cats, well, not cats. I think cats could care less, but I think dogs are more affectionate when it comes to someone that they're living with, and they're gonna wait by the door. Their
Mm-hmm.
anticipation, or even they'll sleep by the door or the window, waiting for their owner to come home.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that there's great if we dig just a little bit deeper, what is that dog doing? They're being
Mm,
faithful. And that's an element of love that we really need to restore back to the society, is that love is being faithful. Love is being true. Love is being always there for
mm,
that person. And dogs are perfect examples of that. if there's any way that you can describe, Raphael, the behavior that you're having right at this time, think of the opposite behavior, and then find out, is that on an angry spectrum or is it on a loving spectrum?
Mm.
And just take, for example, the word sarcasm. This has been really a helpful exercise for me in my coaching,
Mm.
that try to find out what it would be the opposite of that. And the words that come to mind for the word sarcasm as opposites would be genuine, authentic. Now, do you want to be sarcastic?
Mm.
That's the choice. I mean, or do you want to be sarcastic, or do you want to be genuine? Do you want to be true?
Mhm.
That just kind of pinpoints it for you, that where do you want to be on that spectrum?
Yeah, that's huge when you think of it that way, right? And
Mhm.
when you can actually bring somebody out of their sarcasm, if you will, and make them think about, oh, where am I? And why did I say those words? Because
Mhm.
words have so much power, right? Words can, listen, words can start a war.
Mhm.
Words can create a bond that's unbreakable as long as the words continue to be powerful, right? I love the fact that you, from your childhood, you understood the importance of love early on because of your childhood. Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind. Where'd you grow up? How were you influenced before the age of 10 even? And how has that helped you navigate into whom you are today?
Great question, Raphael. Thank you. I grew up in Montana, and in Montana, my father was a truck driver. He'd be gone throughout the week, come home on Friday, every single Friday, and he would date my mother. So the kids we didn't see him on Friday most of the time, unless it was late night. My father, I don't know how he did it, but he dated my mother faithfully, just like the dog, faithfully every Friday night. I can't do that myself. I can't replicate what he did in that regard.
Mm,
Something's always coming up. There's some other activity. There's something else that's going on, and so I love that part about him. But just the creativity wasn't there. It was always the Maverick Bar. It was always with alcohol, and
mm,
so when my mother and father would meet, I was never there, but can imagine I would say, "How was your week? How was your week?" And my mother, I'm number 10 of 11 children. So
mm,
I can imagine my mother starting at the oldest child and then going all the way down. By the time that my mother's to number 10, my father's agitated. He's really annoyed. So he starts getting annoyed, and he's stacking these annoyances. And then he's going to have this flash of anger. And I didn't realize that until now, until in the recent years, that that's kind of exactly what he was doing, just stacking those annoyances until he had so much that it was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
mm.
that
Right.
that was too much. And so number 10, I'm you can see how he valued women by taking my mother out every single Friday night. I'm a thorn between two roses, sandwiched between an older sister and a younger sister. All the rest are boys. So
Mm,
I'm really kind of a target guy anyway. I don't remember him being more as aggressive in discipline with any of the other children as he was with me. And maybe it's just my own point of view, but it
right.
just didn't seem that way. I think that was those stacking of annoyances from what my older brothers were doing. They're like puppies, talking about dogs. They were like puppies. They're going to wrestle, they're going to swat at each other, and they're going to accidentally break an arm or a leg or do something stupid. And that's what they were doing. And they were riding motors. I remember one time my brother was riding a motorcycle, and we had a clinic parking lot behind our house. And they when on the weekends when no cars were there, they'd ride their motorcycle up and down. And one time my brother went through the chains. They had chains across, but
Mm,
he got around. He rode through the chain, and it hurt his neck really bad, and he had to go to the doctor. And just one more accident, that one more stacking, my father gets agitated because of all these things, and he's agitated. It's geared toward me. So either they get the belt or severe spanking is what was happening. And so I really, Raphael, early on learned the language of anger,
Mm.
all the vocabulary of anger, all the humor of anger, all the put downs, all the talking over one another, all those habits of anger, interrupting one another, all those habits of anger were the culture that we lived in. But I remember one thing that we did do was play games. As a family, even as dysfunctional as we were, there
Right.
was still all the smack talk, there was still all the put downs, there were aggressive competition, but we played games. And in that game playing, it was more fun than anybody trying to hurt each other. It was just
Mm.
more verbal abuse, and just that happens more locker room talk is what it really was.
Right.
But I remember doing that, and that kind of spurred an idea that I had as I'm learning later in life to love. I've got this residual anger that very similar to what my father had. That I would be annoyed, and stack these annoyances until I had my own flash of anger. And it could have been in public, or it could have been private. But if it's in public, it's really one of those things like if you're in a swimming pool and someone has an accident, people scatter.
Oof. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. And that type of situation, and you repel people when you get angry in public like that,
Mm.
and you repel people in private too. So I
Hmm.
was repelling people, and I did not want to do that. But with that negative background, that negative attitude, I made a goal. I said, I don't want to be angry. And it's like put two negatives together, but that only works in math. You can multiply one negative number by another negative number and receive a positive number. It
Mm.
doesn't work in relationships.
No.
And it wasn't working for me. Probably the best way to illustrate this, again with a object lesson that I like to use in any kind of coaching, is that the other day I was out walking and I found a little walking stick while I'm out
Mm.
walking, and it didn't have any bark on it. This is the stick. It didn't
Right.
have any bark on it, just like this. This side of the stick is very, very nice, but this side of the stick, you see, it has some points on it and some places,
Little
sharp places,
ragged. Yeah.
a little ragged, and I call it the naughty side of the stick because of the knots on there. And so this is naughty and nice, perfect for Christmas. Naughty and nice. Santa Claus has a stick just like that, I'm sure. That's how
Mm.
you get your presents, Raphael. I bet you didn't know that. So what I found is that anger actually is on
Mandy
that.
loves your stick, by the way. She says she loves that stick.
Oh yeah, thank you, thank you. So on that, what I found is that anger was on that naughty side of the stick. And I had an experience about 15 years ago. All this anger and the outbursts that I had were contributory to the demise of my first marriage. After 23 and a half years and eight
Mm.
children, I I had primary custody of the children. Five were left in the home, and then on the weekends that I didn't have the children, I would do what I call destination dating, and I'd go out and I'd find someone that lived in a different city, and we'd choose a city to meet in, and then we'd have a date and then go back home.
Mm.
Destination dating. So I did it in Jacksonville, Florida, Daytona Beach, Atlanta, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, New York City, Salt
Mm.
Lake City, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Cabo San Lucas, Nashville, Kansas City.
Wow.
All these places I went for about a year and a half when it was my weekend off away from the kids. Couldn't find anything. I thought I had a line on someone that lived in Phoenix, and I moved there. It didn't work out. So here I am now in Phoenix, and now my wife, after 3.5 years, my ex-wife, after 3.5 years of not having the primary custody of the children, now she wants custody again.
Mm.
And so while we're talking about it, she's moving actually to live with her parents back in California, and so she's in her 40s, moving back home. And I thought this would really be a perfect opportunity. I only had three left at the time for these last three children to get to know their grandparents. And so I relinquished primary custody. I'm number 10 of 11. I never knew either one of my grandfathers. And
Wow.
one grandmother lived 350 miles to the east of me, and the other grandmother lived 350 miles west. We're kind of right in the middle between the grandmothers, but I didn't see them very often. One was nice, one was naughty. And it was just
Like
back
your
to the
stick.
back to the stick. Yeah. Everything has a perspective, and I use that as the spectrum of where you are on the stick. And
Mhm.
so I'm alone now because I relinquished custody, and my older sister, gives me a call, and she said she had a neighbor that she wanted to introduce me. She lives 7 hours away, and I told her, you know what? I have the I've already been doing this destination dating. I did it for a year and a half. I don't want to travel 7 hours to find a person.
Mhm.
So, and she says, "Oh, come on. You got to do, when you're number 10 and 11 children, you got to do what older siblings tell you." In the day, Raphael, I was the human remote control. They'd tell me, go up to the TV and you turn that knob so that we can change the channel. And
Right.
so you have to do what big brother, big sister say. So I said, all right, I'll email her. What kind of relationship can you get with the email? And so but we started emailing, and after 4 or 5, this is interesting. She was a really good writer, and
Mm.
and after 4 or 5 times, I get brave, and I think, well, I'm going to ask her how many times she's been married before, because
Mm.
she hadn't disclosed any of that yet. And so I got brave and I asked that, and she wrote back and she says, counting the 5 that are buried in the backyard. And
Oh.
I roared with laughter because now I've got a live wire. I've got someone with some personality, someone that has, just has a sense of humor. I thought, I'm going to pursue this a little bit because this is kind of fun. And so as I'm pursuing it, we're getting closer, and I decided I'm going to move up where my sister's at.
Mm.
Did that. We got serious. Now it's time to take this woman for Big Brother approval. And so I take this woman to my brother's house, 300 miles north. And the first thing that happens is that we go in my brother's house. My sister-in-law pulls her aside and says, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up was anger. At first I didn't. I said, it made me mad. I thought, I've been, yeah, I busted. I was, she nailed it, and I actually demonstrated exactly what she predicted. And
Mm.
I realized at that point that I really need some remedial coaching, some remedial training. So I started reading the color code, and then started reading the 5 love languages. And I read the 5 love languages probably 4 or 5 times, Raphael. And
Mm.
just I went through the book, but the
Right.
book didn't go through me.
Mm.
I didn't get it. If you would have asked me name of the 5 love languages after 4 or 5 times of reading it, I might get 3, but I couldn't name all 5. I
Mm.
thought, this, I don't get this. If Dr. Chapman, you're saying if I guess what Raphael's love language is and I cater to Raphael, we're going to be buddies, and you're calling that love? I came from a background that, how was I supposed to know what love? But that didn't sound
Right.
like love, and
Yeah.
it sound more like a manipulation of sorts, and it wasn't working for me. And the second thing that Dr. Chapman has in the book is that, well, if you take this survey, you'll find out what your love language is. Well, like I said before, Raphael, what do I do with that? Advertise?
Mm.
Hello,
Mm.
I'm I'm gifts. What do you have for me today? And it's, that's just so awkward, and we're done with awkward. It's just that, I did not want to do that. So I decided I'm going to contact Dr. Chapman, and I wrote him an email and said, are you licensing those little icons, the little pictures that you have for each one of the love languages? And his attorney wrote back and said, no, we're not doing that at this time. So I had an attorney friend that's a copyright attorney here in town, went over to him, told him my idea, that I wanted to make this a game. He said theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. application is.
Mm.
So how you present it is what's copyrightable. So with that, I made my own icons and I actually put it on a cube. And so
Nice.
this is the cube. Each one represents a love language. This person's like a waiter holding a platter that would represent service. Notice
Mm-hmm.
these are all pictures, by the way.
Right.
Two hands together forming a heart with a little conversation fly out. Those would be the words of the heart or words.
Mm.
A hand holding an hourglass represents time. Hand holding a gift represents gifts. And then the last one, two hands look like they're holding hands. That would be touch.
Mm.
Five love languages, six sides on the cube. I created the last one called it surprise me. Just a hand holding a question mark. So there's
Mm.
just two instructions, Raphael. You roll the cube every day. Whatever it lands on, that's the love language you practice giving away all day that day. All day. It's not like I
Wow.
did the dishes. Woohoo, I'm done. It's not like that at all. All day to everyone. So remember, I'm single at the time while I'm creating this. I didn't have a significant other to practice this on.
Mm.
And just as a side note, I don't know anybody that's with their significant other 24/7, maybe, or cares to be with their significant other 24/7. Some people are like that. They just don't want, give me some space, and it's just always like that. So I decided, well, who am I going to love? And I decided, well, I've got to love everybody. It really was something that worked so well that that adversity, so to speak, that I faced actually became a blessing for me because loving everybody was a behavior that I had to do all the time. I needed that consistency to get over on that nice side of the naughty and nice stick, get over on that spectrum by practicing the love languages. So, what happens with this, Raphael, is that over a 30-day period, you actually learn all five love languages to give it away.
Mm.
By
Love
learning
it.
them back, yeah, by learning them backwards and forwards like that, now you have a different eyesight. You have a better communication skills so that you can see it when it comes your way and respond appropriately.
I love it. You know, Paul, I think your parents and my parents have something in common, you and me, because we're both number 10.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm 10 of 12.
Wow.
And I did not know what love was because I can't recall any time I was hugged
Oh,
as a
I'm
kid.
sorry.
That's okay, because guess what I am now? I'm a huge hugger. I love
Hmm.
hugs. I love giving hugs. I love receiving hugs. And like you, I'm always considering if no one is going to love me, there's got to be one person that loves me. And I kept looking in the mirror, and that guy said, "You know, I think I love you."
Hmm.
And that's where that self-love came true for me, where I really saw that it's okay if no one else loves me, as long as I love me. And then therefore, I can project that love that I have for myself onto others. And so that's why at the age of 18, I forgave everyone, everyone who ever did me wrong. And, I think the love language I learned from my parents is whack, smack,
Hmm.
hit. It didn't matter what they hit me with. It didn't matter how the punishment went as long as I knew I was punished.
Hmm.
If I thought I was not punished, they would continue until it was clear. So that's the language I learned from them. And that's the language I never wanted to give to anyone else. So at the age of 18, I wanted nothing to do with my family at all. And what I turned around and I said, because the only one that ever really stood out for me was my older sister. And to me, she's a saint even today. And she begged me because I told her I want nothing to do with the rest of the family. She cried. She's like, "You can't do that. You can't do that." I said, "Nope." I said, "I'm sorry." She cried. She cried. It took me about 3 weeks. And then I went back and I talked to her and I said, I'm going to let go of all the pain that they've ever given me. And I'm going to go and forgive them. But I don't necessarily have to go and talk to them. I'm going to forgive them without them knowing I'm forgiving them. I'm just going to treat them nicer than they've ever treated me. I'm just going to be nice. I'm not going to, one of the things that I've always realized is when you tell someone what they did wrong over and over and over and over again, it's because you're trying to prove yourself right. So for me to truly forgive them, I had to forgive them without them necessarily knowing they were being forgiven. So that's where I learned that. And I learned it at the age of 18. And I've never, ever been angry or thrown a tantrum or anything like that since that age. And anyone can tell me anything and it just rolls off my back. Because I know that if they really knew me, they wouldn't talk like that to me. So I think you and I are very, very much alike, my friend.
You were much better than I was, Raphael. It took me a long time to realize. In fact, at age 35, I'm still blaming my father
Mm,
for the upbringing and like that. And once I realized something at that time, though, that if I can blame someone else for my problems, I don't have to change. I don't have to do a darn thing. It keeps me right in my same spot, and
mm.
it's their fault. You
There's
go
no
talk to
growth.
Exactly. You go talk to them. Well, you can't set goals. If you're
Mm,
blaming someone, you can't set a goal to get any better at all because you've not admitted that you've got some part in that. And I love it's not a Christian broadcast, but I love the Last Supper. Jesus asks the
mm,
disciples, "Is in it? One of you," or says to the disciples, "One of you is going to betray me." It wasn't just one, but it was every single disciple said, "Lord, is it I? Lord, is it I?" And I found just those four words. Is it four? Lord, is it I? Yeah, four.
mhm.
Found that just those four words have been so refreshing for me to go back in any type of relationship any day of the week and ask myself that question, Lord, is it I? Is it me that's the problem in this particular relationship? And then ask, what can I do? And thankfully the Lord's merciful that he only gives us a little bit of information at a time. So
Mm,
if it was the whole burden of you're so bad, it would be horrible. But
mm,
he doesn't look at us the way we look at other people. I found that we look at the negative and then build ourselves up. It's quite the opposite. In India, they look at what's good about other people and then try to refine what's bad about themselves. In
yeah.
America, they look at what's bad about other people and boost themselves up because
Yeah.
they say they're better than another person. You
Mm,
know, just this philosophy is more like namaste. Just put your hands together, bow your head, close your eyes, say namaste.
mm,
Namaste is from the Sanskrit dialect. We're talking about languages. So this is from the Sanskrit dialect in northern India. The Hindu interpretation of that means that the divine in me sees the divine in you, or the God in me sees the God in you. Just we're watching for light of other people. We're watching for what's good about them. And as you're watching for what's good, most people are intrinsically good, 80, 90% good. They might have 10%, 20% faults or weaknesses. Focus on what's right about them. And that's really what this dice has done for me, is that it really changed that whole attitude. From the background I had, Raphael, I was looking at what's wrong with that person.
mm,
Why didn't they do it that way? Thinking without those boundaries, another attribute of an angry culture, no
mm,
boundaries. Without that boundary saying they have their own choices. Let them make their own choices,
Mm.
and and choose what they're going to do in their life. And I have no call. I really have no means. I stay out of their business. It's not my call. When I realized I needed to stay out of their business and started rolling the die, I stopped being in their business, stopped
Mm.
being annoyed at them. So the anger stopped being annoyed at them, and started focusing on what's right with them rather than what's wrong with them. And it
Mm.
changed my life. Absolutely
It
changed my life.
it definitely can. One of the things I've been blamed for loving everybody. I really have.
That's a good
I've
blame.
been it's a good blame. But people go, you just like everybody. I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with them? Well, this, that, the other. I'm like, well, think about it. They were a beautiful baby at one point. They were giggling and smiling. They may be terrible now, but at one point, they had that joy in them. Something in their life took it away. So why should I take it away from them? I said, maybe I can bring that joy back to them. Maybe it's up to me. I can't say it's up to someone else when I can bring the joy, when I can give them something, when I can see the beauty in them. Why should I see the negativity that everyone else sees? Right. And it doesn't matter. I mean, listen, I've had people like be really hurtful to me, and I'm super nice to them still. Like people like, well, remember what so and so? Yep, totally remember. I said, but I'm not here to judge them. I said they're doing that on their own. They'll be
Mhm.
judged, but not by me, right? And we talked about God before. And yes, I agree with the fact that he said, one of you will betray me, but he did not say, I will love less than
Mhm.
all of you. I will still love you, even though you are going to betray me, because I'm here for you no matter what you do. So if we can start thinking that way, if we can start thinking of everybody, no matter how angry, how nasty, how rude they are, if we can go, you must have been a beautiful baby. And that might even take them back and go, what did you say? And then they go, wait a minute, I'm being nasty, but you're thinking I was a beautiful baby? I'm sure you were. And then people are going to think about it. So it's just like I said, it's the little words that we can use. The way we treat someone is definitely so unique to who we are, right? And I think we
Absolutely.
we we need to remember that every day.
Mhm.
Like every day I wake up, the first thing I do, and I don't even have an alarm clock. Um, I wanted to get up around 4:30. I was up around 3 something. And it's because my intentions for the day are this, I have these things to do. And I wake up and I'm always grateful. Wow, I get extra time today. So people say, how do you do all the things you do? And it's because of gratitude. I blame
Mhm.
gratitude. I blame love for me being able to do the extra things that I'm able to do. And the first thing I do is when I know I'm awake, I start praying. I
Mhm.
pray and I'm thankful. I thank God and I thank him for all that he has replenished me with constantly every day, my health, my children, my family, my friends, all of these things. It's how my day starts every day. And also that's how it ends. So in the
Mhm.
evening, I right before I fall asleep, I'm actually praying in
Mhm.
gratitude. And
I
sometimes
love
it's
that.
funny. I'll wake up and I'm like, wait a minute, did I finish? Did I pray? Did I finish prayer? I'll pray again if I
Mhm.
woke up in the middle, right? So I think that, you and I are very, very much alike.
Mhm.
And when you consider the way we treat other people, and everybody says it, but they don't necessarily do it. Treat others like you want to be treated. But
Mhm.
how true is that? And how many people do treat someone? How many people do turn that other cheek?
Yeah, I love that, Raphael. I love that analogy, and what I like to do is say, if whatever I have this little magnifying glass, that whatever you magnify is going to be bigger.
Hmm.
Who in their right mind wants to magnify the weaknesses or faults of another?
Yeah.
Because guess what? That's a boomerang coming right back at you. When that boomerang comes back at you, it's going to have the velocity of and the power of gravity bringing that back down, and it's going to be a lot worse than you ever sent it out. So just
Hmm.
be careful. Be careful. Why would you send that out? When you expand or magnify it, it's going to get bigger. Why would you want those weaknesses of a child or of another person to get bigger? You want
Hmm.
them to get smaller. Focus on what's good about the person. And I don't think you have to go all the way back to them being a baby to find something good about them. I believe that I believe that there's a lot of good that you can focus on right away, right now, here or the present.
Nice, nice. Yeah, you don't have to go back to when they were babies, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt.
That's a good start. That's a good start.
Yeah. So tell me, you wrote the book Love is God, right? Is that the name of your book?
No, no, it's called Role of Love.
Oh, Roll of Love. Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah,
That's why your website is rolloflove.com.
yeah, yeah.
But God plays a big part in your life,
He
right?
does, and I believe that he is the author of love in the purest sense.
Mm,
So the love, if whatever we can do to get back to that kind of, it's the puppy love. It's that dog wagging their tail in the window waiting for you.
right.
That's the type of love we're talking about. Always there, always faithful, always there for us to come back.
Mm. You know, one of the things that happened to me is that I grew up in the church, Roman Catholic,
Hmm.
and there was so many negatives in it as well that I went away from it. But I've always prayed, always
Hmm.
prayed. And I even picked up the Bible, read it, and threw it away because it was so confusing, and did it twice. And then finally, in 2021, I said, I need to figure something out. Actually, 2020, figure something out. I've always been looking for something. So I said, instead of me reading the Bible and not understanding it, why don't I listen to a podcast? Because I like podcasts.
Hmm.
So I started listening to, and it made more sense. And then I was speaking to a client, and they said, well, I go to this church because they went through the same similar thing that I went through with the Roman Catholic Church. And they went to a Christian church, and it's a Bible study. And I've been going for 2 years now, and I'm loving it.
Hmm.
And it allows me to be me, right?
Hmm.
There's no demands, if you will, which is what I felt with the Roman Catholic Church, which was stand up, sit down, kneel down, shake somebody's hand, do this, do that, do that.
Hmm.
And it was so constrictive to me personally. This is how I felt. Now I feel the freedom. And one of the things that the reason I stopped going to church for a long time is because one of the things that it said is that God is in you, right? And he's with you wherever you go. So that's when I started saying, well, why do I have to go to church? Why do I have to go there
Hmm.
to pray? I can pray, and I pray all the time. Sometimes I'm driving and I'm praying. I go to this church because of the community that this
Hmm.
church has given me.
Right.
But do I have to go to that church? No. I, Me personally, this is my own beliefs. I'm not saying for anyone else, but I'm saying for me. So I enjoy going to this church, but every time I'll be driving, and all of a sudden I'll break out and pray. I'm like, oh, I'm praying. I said, oh, I'm grateful. I'm this, I'm that. And I'll look at somebody who pulls up next to me, and I'm like, I hope they have an amazing day today. Out of nowhere, right? And it's somebody I've never met, and I probably may never meet. but just to send out that love outward to someone else, I think that's something that has been in me all along, and I just didn't realize it until the
Hmm.
more I prayed for it, the more I realized that God is in all of us. If He's
Hmm.
in all of us, and if He is our Father, then you, my friend, are my brother.
Exactly. I love that. Yeah,
Mm,
very well said. I don't know if you know this, but Dr. Gary Chapman actually was a reverend or a pastor
I didn't
um,
know.
himself. And he said that each one of these love languages are patterned after the life of Jesus Christ.
Mm,
And so if you go back over it, Christ served everyone.
mm,
We love his words.
right.
He spent time with people.
Mm,
He had the gifts of the Spirit, and he healed by touching their eyes or their ears so they could see or so they could hear.
nice.
All five of the love languages reconcile back to the life of Jesus Christ. And I wanted that in my life. I wanted to be a better person, a better man, a better individual all my life. And I was angry for so long that Raphael, that I've got such a long way to go. I've got send out double or triple portion of love every single day to everyone, and
Mm,
it's that's what motivates me to get up in the morning very early. I get up at 5, not as early as 3, but at 5, and I'm able to get the day started quickly and plan how I'm going to love that day. I love
mm,
the idea, the 2 seconds that it takes to set the intention for the day. I do pray. That's the very first thing I do as well. Second thing though is roll the cube, and
mm,
so that sets the tone for the day. How am I going to love intentionally all day today? And it
mm,
just is a great way, and it's very similar to uh, where how you have that person beside you while you're driving. You're praying for him, but if they pass you and move right in front of you and kind of cut you off, you still can pray for them.
mm.
Instead of cussing at them, you pray for them, and that's and say, wow, he has a fast car. Or you can say just things that they're
Maybe they're
probably
in a hurry.
they're getting there in a hurry. Yeah, they need that space.
Yeah.
And
Well, Mandy says she needs a cube. How does she get one?
she can go to rolloflove.com and order from there. I do have a book, The Cube, and I do have a journal that goes along with it as well. Some people like to record what they rolled, opportunities they saw to love in that way, and what they did about those opportunities. And the journal page is exactly like that.
Mm,
It'll show you just check off what you rolled, opportunities you saw, and then the results that you had. So it's really kind of a prompt type of journey that or journal that you can write with. I found that in any journal that I've seen, if it's a blank page, my mind goes blank. What the
mm,
heck did I do today? This
right.
because you've got set the purpose for the day of loving at the beginning of the day. This becomes a love journal. I would have loved to have a love journal, Raphael, from my mother or my grandmother or my
Mm.
grandfather. Instead, I got a journal about the weather. The weather 60 years ago. Who cares what the weather was like 60 years ago? I would have
If you
loved
if you didn't use it, you might have liked it.
I would have loved just to have a love journal. So
Mm.
that's what we've got.
Well, I'm gonna want a signed copy, my friend. You know that, right?
Of
Because
course.
we're talking, so I appreciate you so much. And Mandy is she's amazing. She's a poet as well, and she tells us to have a blessed day, and she's amazing. She's out of Canada, I believe, and when we consider the people in our lives, how can we show them love without necessarily seeming like we are doing it in a way to maybe get them to reply back? One of the things that people I hear somebody say, "Hey, I love you," and then the person immediately is like they feel obligated to say, "I
Mhm.
love you too." Where somebody can just receive. without necessarily having to blurt it out again because maybe they didn't think about it. Like you can look at the person, maybe it's your partner that you're in love with them, and you just turn around and you look at them and you go, man, I love you. And then for them not necessarily to have to go, I love you too, because it's like, oh, or just to go, thank you. Right. So it's that gratitude of just accepting love.
So how do we get there? I think
Mm.
that I think we do it quietly. You can't do the doorbell ditch anymore because everybody has the Ring doorbells. They're seeing you on the camera, and
Mm.
your identity is blown by then. But as far as loving family like that, I think that just kindness, expressing it in kindness. You can say, you don't have to say the words. The words is just one of the five love languages, but you can do it in a lot of actions. Everything you do, if it's centered around love, if it's on the nice side of the stick, if it's centered around love, it's always going to be felt in love that way. And what you're watching for, Raphael, as you're rolling the die or as you're doing all these actions of love, you're watching for people to light up. When they light up, you've discovered what their love language is. No
Mm.
longer do you have to say, excuse me, could we pause this relationship so that I can have you take this survey so I know how to love you? That's awkward. You don't have to do awkward
Good.
anymore. Yeah, just use your observation skills. Watch when they light up. When they light up, you've discovered their primary love language. For that person, just make a mental note and wash, rinse, repeat. Do that over and over again for that person. But
Mm.
through a course of a day, you're practicing on a specific love language. You're going to find people that light up for that love language. That's what you're watching for.
Mm. One of the things that you made me think about when you just talked about, can we pause right now for a survey, was that a lot of people actually put their love on pause when their anger comes out,
Absolutely.
right? So their anger takes over, and then all of a sudden they say things or do things that they'll regret later, instead of saying, you know what, I may not be happy with you right now, but I don't have to act in this way. I still love you, even though I'm mad at you, right? And I think we need to not say it out loud necessarily, but say it to ourselves. Because when we're angry at another person, I think what winds up happening is we get blinded
Mhm.
by our actions, by our thoughts. And I think if we keep the love forefront, right? When people do the little heart thing, I
Mhm.
think you should put that in. Oh, look at that. I got hearts flying, right?
Yeah, look at that. It doesn't do it for me. How do you do that?
I got so much love, man. What could I
Yeah,
say?
I like it. I like it.
So when we do that, we should put that filter in front of us when we have that anger. We should put that heart filter in front of us before we speak to someone, before we show them how we're not happy with them. And instead of coming out as anger, we should use it as a love, as, I love you, but I'm upset with you. And not necessarily say those words, but to yourself. And then your actions will be way better than if you pulled away the heart and just went with your anger mind, right?
Raphael, that's great. Great comment. I like to handle it just a little bit differently,
Sure.
and I like to make suggestions or say something to the fact that I've seen you do it in a lot better way. Let's try it, or would you take some advice? And if they say yes, then you say, might want to try it just this way. See if that works a little bit better for you. And instead of being annoyed or upset at what they can't do, back to the negative again,
Mm.
be happy and grateful, like we've talked about, for what they can do. Focus on what they can do, and just if they've got a lack of skills and they're not doing their job exactly right, you can use this in an employment situation. maybe it's the teacher. Maybe it's not all about the student. So maybe you just need to regroup a little bit and teach them kindly in a different way how you would like that task done, or maybe even a better way to accomplish the task. There's no need to get upset because that shows a weakness in you. And really, it's not really shows a weakness, but shows that you're getting annoyed. You're starting that stair step back to
Hmm.
pretty soon you're going to blow big time
Right.
on that person. And you don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to stack kindness upon kindness upon kindness upon kindness. That is the only stair step that gets you to forgiveness or
Mhm.
intimacy or compassion or
Right.
charity or empathy or sympathy. Those are the higher laws of love. These love languages are the very basic. Let's learn the basics so we can get there, so we can stair step and get to those higher laws.
Mm, love it. Love it. Paul, this has been an incredible conversation, my friend. Thank you for taking the time today, for being here, for sharing with us what you have learned, what you have become. You have become a coach who helps people truly find themselves. And I think we all truly can find ourselves when we put love first. So thank you for today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Raphael. It's really been a pleasure to be with you, and I
Yeah.
love the love that you're doing all by yourself.
Oh, thank you.
You're making the world a better place, and that's what it's all about. It really is.
It is, right? For both you and I and everyone who's listening, just reach out to someone. Tell them you love them. Give them a hug. But don't say it if you don't mean it. If you like them, that's cool too, right? It's okay to like somebody. You don't have to love everybody. You can like them for what they've done for you. But love, I think, it should be reserved for true love, right? Because I can love pizza and then I'll turn around. Oh, I love this pizza. Oh, and I love you. Wait a minute. Am I pizza?
That's a
So
little objectification. We
there
don't
you go.
want that. We don't
No,
want
not
that.
at all. Well, thank you again, my friend. Really appreciate you. Have
Thank you,
yourself an
Raphael.
exceptional day. Don't leave. We're just going to say goodbye to everybody.
Sure.
Everybody, have an amazing one. Please follow, share, and like, and we'll see you next time. Take care.